Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about hiding in a software company. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, as a software developer who is not that good at programming, how do I hide myself in a tech company so that I don't get caught out? Well, I'm not really sure what the content contributors agreement is about because I know roughly that YouTube will not allow me to show you how to make drugs or stuff like that, which are that's some of the stuff that I do in my spare time. So it's kind of sad because the intention behind this channel was originally to show you how to do that, but I couldn't, so now I'm making programming videos instead. But and I'm not sure if this falls under the same category, but let's just go for it, right? And see what happens. Legal ramifications be damned. So if you are a bad software developer and you want to hide in an IT company, I suggest that the let's start with the thing that you need to avoid at all costs. The thing that you need to avoid at all costs is to get yourself in a position where you can be evaluated as an individual. That is very dangerous because it's the first thing that any manager of any worth is going to do if they want to figure out if you're good or bad. You see, the way that you can hide in an IT company, you can hide a software developer that is bad, is in a team. You need to work in a team, because if you work in a team, you can always leverage your coworkers. You can always create a situation where it's hard to determine if the team is the problem or you are the problem, and you can always ask for help. You can abuse your coworkers. Ideally, you want to get yourself into a team where there's a lot of caring, nice, and you know high empathy people. That's a very good environment for you to be in because they're not going to report you. Most likely, they might be a little bit unhappy with you, but you can get them over to your side with a song and a smile if you play your cards right. And they will try to help you, and then they will do their best, right? And as long as you avoid being evaluated off by your managers as an individual, which is usually the case when you are the only person who have been touching a specific delivery, and that delivery doesn't really go so well or it takes a lot of time, well, you don't really have any fingers to point now, or you can't hide behind the uncertainty who was involved and like to what degree people did things and stuff like that. That's something that you can do. You also should try your best to not be in the smaller companies, or rather, it's not smaller companies per se. You want to get into a company where they have a more quantitative mindset around hiring people. Usually, these are like you can be bigger companies, like really, really monstrously big companies like the automotive industry, for example, things like that. Because usually, what happens at that scale is that you have quite a lot of different projects, and people aren't really paying attention to the quality of each individual team. It's actually fairly easy in many cases to be a fairly no average or below average software developer and make it in these bigger companies because the the standards of doing work is it's not as refined or cutting edge, and people are like the really good, I'm not going to go too far on this one, but the really good software developers and the really good managers, they usually don't want to work for an extended period of time in things like the banking world or the automotive industry. And it's because it's like the processes that is like bleeding edge, and the stuff that the really uh, the cool stuff, the trendy stuff, the things that make you want to actually get up in the morning and go to work is usually not happening in these more conservative IT companies, or these companies that have, like I would like to call it, they have an IT department, but they're not IT companies. And when you're not an IT company, it's much more likely that you will have a much less refined process of delivering software. As long as it kind of just quote unquote works, people are not going to complain all that much. So the bar is usually much lower. If you want to work in the real IT companies, I'm not saying just Google or Facebook or so forth, but like these sorts of companies, or like even at my scale, at smaller startups that are like really focused on the quality of software, it's really hard for you to hide in that environment, unless, as I said, you get into a really caring environment of coworkers who are not going to rat you out. So what I want you to take away from this is, number one, that I think that your focus should not be to hide. I think that well, you can hide, of course, until you get to a point where you're actually good. Try to continuously improve yourself as much as you can. But since I don't discriminate at all when somebody asks me something, I mean, you could literally ask me anything, no matter how immoral or personal, and I will try my best to take it seriously and actually answer it. I will tell you that if your goal is to hide yourself within an IT company, number one, try to go to a company where the process of delivering software is a little bit more, it's rough. It's not as refined as it is in the really, really advanced IT companies. And then try to get yourself into a team of ideally very nice and sociable people, but a team at the very least. And then finally, avoid any type of work or like taking on any type of responsibility where you are pretty much the only person who's associated with delivering that thing. Because if that turns out bad or it takes a long time, you have nowhere to hide because you're the only one who is supposed to be working on this. So ideally you want to spread the responsibility around a little bit, because what you're looking for is to create a uncertainty of how involved have you been, how involved have other people been, because that makes it really hard for a manager who is looking to fire somebody to just point at you and say, you're the ineffective part of all of this. They have to look at the entire team, and that is exactly where you want to be if you're going to hide. Have a great day.